seeing Spain and Portugal from the deck of a ship gives you a completely different perspective on the region. We've been lucky enough to cruise around the Iberian Peninsula quite a few times over the years, and it really changes how you experience these coastlines. In fact, to this day, crossing the Strait of Gibraltar on a sunny winter day remains one of the most spectacular moments in our long list of travels. But figuring out the logistics of a trip like this can be tricky. There are so many things you need to know when planning a cruise, but today we are going to focus purely on itineraries. We are going to walk you through all the main ports you can visit around the Iberian Peninsula. Then we'll concentrate specifically on the major hubs where you can actually start or end your journey and break down the usual itineraries for exploring the area. Finally, we'll look at how to choose the right itinerary along with the pros and cons of each style of travel. Hola, ¿qué tal? Hello and welcome to the channel. If you are new here, this is a channel made by two humans living here in Spain who spend an absurd amount of time traveling around the Iberian Peninsula, sometimes on board a cruise ship, so you don't have to plan your trips blindly. Let's begin talking about the ports. Spain and Portugal have a vast network of cruise ports ranging from major hubs to smaller stops used mainly by boutique or smaller cruise lines. Let's take a look at the map where we've placed the most important ones. First, there are ports on what's called the Mar Cantábrico in Spain along the north coast, stretching from San Sebastian all the way to Vigo in the Atlantic. From there, you will find a string of ports running along the Atlantic coast of Portugal and continuing into Huelva and Cádiz in Spain. Seville, even though it sits inland, is also visited by smaller cruise ships that can sail up the Guadalquivir River. And finally, there's a whole cluster of stops along the Mediterranean coast from Gibraltar to the Balearic Islands. On top of all that, there's still a separate group of ports out on the Atlantic Islands we haven't been able to fit onto this map, both in the Azores and Madeira in Portugal and in the Canary Islands in Spain. Not all ports are created equal. Cruise ships may stop in many places for a day visit, but when it comes to departures and arrivals, the action is concentrated in just a handful of ports. And there are really only two names you need to keep in mind. First, Lisbon. It is Portugal's main cruise hub. In 2025, the port handled 335 cruise calls in total, including 121 cruise ships that began or ended in Lisbon with 206,000 passengers. The brilliant thing about Lisbon's cruise port is that it's right in the center of the city, so you can disembark and walk straight to Alfama or Baixa. We have a video on the channel, linked in the first comment below this one, where we explain in detail all the transport options for reaching the cruise terminal in Lisbon. But the true heavyweight in the Iberian Peninsula is Barcelona, the largest cruise port in the world outside the US and the Caribbean, and a Mediterranean base of operations for companies like Costa, MSC, and Royal Caribbean. In 2025, Barcelona handled 438 cruise calls in total, with more than 1.46 million passengers, including over 1.1 million turnaround passengers. That means a huge share of cruises here actually begin or end in the city rather than simply calling in for the day. Most of the time we embark on cruises in this part of the world, we do it in Barcelona. It's just one of those ports that naturally becomes the starting point for so many itineraries around the region. Barcelona's cruise terminal isn't far from the city center, and we also have a video on the channel where we explain all the ways to reach the terminal and warn about the big mistake of trying to walk there because it's much farther than it looks. There are other departure points in the Iberian Peninsula, of course, But if you want the widest range of itineraries, Lisbon and especially Barcelona are the two ports to watch. Now let's get into itineraries, because this is where things start to get interesting. Cruise travel doesn't work like a plain schedule. There are no fixed routes you can always count on. Every company runs its own sailings, and the options can change from one month to the next, from one season to the next. So rather than trying to cover everything at once, we're going to keep it simple and break the most common itineraries into 4 groups. Round-trip cruises from Lisbon, one-way cruises from Lisbon, round-trip cruises from Barcelona, and one-way cruises from Barcelona. Round-trip cruises from Lisbon usually fall into 3 main patterns. Some head up the north coast of Spain and then return. Others make their way down to the Canary Islands or over to Madeira before coming back. And some continue towards the Mediterranean, giving you a longer route before the ship turns around and returns to Lisbon. Most cruises departing from Lisbon are one-way sailings with the city either as the starting point or the final stop on the itinerary. And here the options open up quite a bit. You will find cruises connecting the south of England, mainly Southampton, with Lisbon, often along the north coast of Spain. There are also transatlantic and repositioning cruises linking Portugal with the Americas, both north and south. There are also one-way itineraries down to the Canary Islands. Another very common option is the one-way route between Lisbon and Barcelona. And there are also one-way itineraries to other Mediterranean ports, such as Civitavecchia near Rome. Round-trip cruises from Barcelona usually fall into 4 main patterns. One classic option is the round-trip to Lisbon. You will also find itineraries that go as far south as the Canary Islands before returning to Barcelona. Others follow the coast of Spain all the way to Cadiz or Gibraltar and then head back. Probably the most common option is a full loop around the Mediterranean, usually including French and Italian ports, and sometimes also Malta or even the north coast of Africa. For longer sailings, some companies go as far as Greece before returning to Barcelona. Barcelona offers a wide range of one-way sailings. Some are very similar to those found departing from Lisbon. You will find cruises connecting the south of England with Barcelona, often along the north coast of Spain. There are also transatlantic and repositioning cruises linking Barcelona with the Americas, both north and south, sometimes visiting the Canary Islands on the way. There are also one-way itineraries down to those Canary Islands. Another very common option is the one-way route between Barcelona and Lisbon. There are quite a few one-way itineraries to Italian ports, and cruises going up the Adriatic Sea are not uncommon either. Finally, you will find cruises going all the way to Greece or even Istanbul in Turkey. Almost every cruise line out there, whether it's one of the big companies or a smaller boutique operator, has itineraries that include Spain, Portugal, or both. I know, we've covered a lot of ground. So how do you actually choose your itinerary? If you are already a seasoned cruiser, you probably have your own way of deciding. So in this part of the video, we're mainly talking to those who are just getting into cruising. There are a few things that will shape your choice: the cruise line, the ship, the price, the time of the year, and of course the itinerary itself. Let's go through them one by one. Cruise lines are a bit like airlines. Some offer a more luxurious experience, others are more straightforward and budget conscious, and each one has its own style. Seasoned cruisers often have their favorite companies, and so do we. But when we choose a cruise, the cruise line is not usually the deciding factor. We are always happy experimenting with different companies. Don't get us wrong, it's not that we don't care about the cruise line, it's just that for us, the other factors on this list carry more weight. We are not loyal to one brand, at least not yet. We're still on the let's try everything and see what sticks phase. In time, you start to realize that each cruise line offers a slightly different product. The entertainment might be better on one, while the food could be far superior on another. And let's just say we already know exactly which ships are most likely to stock proper Iberian ham. But that's something you only really learn with experience, and it takes a bit of time. For some people, the ship itself is not especially important, a bit like choosing a hotel simply because you need somewhere to sleep. For others, including us, the ship plays an important role in the decision. Everyone has their own likes and dislikes, and when it comes to cruising, ours are probably a little different from most people's. We mainly value access to open decks where you can look out at the sea. And for us, that includes the front of the ship, an area that many newer vessels now reserve for passengers paying a much higher fare. This can become almost the number one factor when we are choosing an itinerary in a place like the Norwegian fjords, where being able to stand outside and take in the landscape is absolutely essential. For cruises around Spain and Portugal, open decks are perhaps not quite so important unless we know we will be crossing the Strait of Gibraltar in daylight again. But we do enjoy watching the ship arrive in port and sail away at the end of the day, so we still pay attention to how easy it is to do that. Again, this is very personal, but we like older ships. We are quite happy to give up the bells and whistles of the newest, biggest vessels in exchange for a ship with a bit more character and better access to the outside. And of course, we completely understand that someone traveling with children may have very different priorities. In that case, the entertainment, activities and facilities on board may matter far more than whether you can stand at the front of the ship and watch it come into port. That said, if you find an itinerary you like, it's always worth taking a closer look at the ship sailing that route. The itinerary may be excellent, but the ship itself can make a big difference to the overall experience. You might also find it helpful to know that just like airlines operate families of aircraft, cruise ships belong to what the industry calls classes. Ships in the same class are not necessarily identical, but they are usually very similar in design. So if you have sailed on a ship before and you are booking a sister ship, that previous experience can be a very good reference point. Price is obviously one of the main factors when you are choosing a cruise. But before you look at the price tag, you need to understand what that price actually includes. The total cost of a cruise is made up of several different items. One of them is, of course, the base price of the cruise. But just as important are the port taxes, the gratuities, and extras like alcoholic drinks, Wi-Fi, or specialty restaurants. Boutique and luxury cruise lines will often include some of these in the price. Budget lines, on the other hand, usually charge for most of these separately. So, before you compare two cruises, make sure you're looking at the real total cost of the trip, not just the headline price. Then there's the cabin itself. Interior cabins are usually the cheapest, ocean view cabins cost more, and balcony cabins go up again from there. But sometimes the difference between categories is smaller than you might expect, so it's always worth looking closely. Speaking from experience, this is one of those things where you can sometimes find a much better deal than you first think, or pay a lot more for a small jump in comfort. So it pays to look carefully because the devil is often in the details. The time of the year is another fundamental factor, and it really comes down to two things: the weather and the holiday seasons. If you are going on a cruise around the Iberian Peninsula in winter, you don't need to pack as if you were heading to Norway, but it is still going to be on the chilly side, especially when the ship is out in the open sea. And you can probably leave the swimming gear at home. The open air pool is going to be more of a decorative feature than an actual plan for the day. Cruises around the Iberian Peninsula don't usually offer the same beach conditions you would get in the Caribbean, but there's still a clear difference between the warmer months and the colder ones. Then there's the holiday season. Summer is high season, which usually means busier ports and plenty of families traveling on board with children. In winter, it's much quieter, the kids are back at school, and you will generally find fewer tourists in the places you visit. Finally, the itinerary is the fundamental factor when choosing a cruise vacation around the Iberian Peninsula. If you're cruising in the Caribbean, you might do it for the beaches. If you go to Norway, you will do it for the awesome landscapes. But in the Iberian Peninsula, it's all about the ports you will visit. When we consider the ports, there are two specific factors we look into: the length of stay in port and how easy it is to reach the points of interest from the docking point. One good thing about ports in the region is that none of the most important ones are tender ports, those ports where you need to disembark on board smaller boats, thus consuming quite a lot of time. Your ship will dock firmly by a pier. If your cruise ship is visiting Lisbon, Cadiz or Cartagena, you are in luck because you will dock right by the city center. But if you stop in Valencia, Alicante or Tarragona, the ship will usually be in an industrial port, so you will need some kind of transport to get into town. Some cruise lines offer this shuttle service for free, while others will charge you for it, so it's worth checking in advance. We are also working on a future port guide on the channel, so you will know exactly what to expect from each port before you go. You also need to look at both the port of departure and the port of arrival. Is it a round trip or is it an open itinerary? As we live in Spain, we usually tend to favor round trips from Barcelona, but an open itinerary from Barcelona to Lisbon might fit your trip perfectly. We hope this video has given you some inspiration for your next trip to the Iberian Peninsula. And if you enjoyed it, this could be the first in a series of videos to help you plan your next cruise adventure around these shores. There's still so much more to explore together. The ports, and we've been to quite a few of them, the cruise lines, all very different, the ships themselves, the best time of the year to sail, and the tips every newcomer should know. And yes, even the role of travel agents in planning a cruise like this. We travel on our own and always make our own travel arrangements, but cruises are one exception where relying on a travel agent is not only a good idea, it's probably the best way to go. Cruise vacations are complex products, and the interesting thing is that booking directly with a cruise line won't cost you any less than booking through a travel agent. You know, we live in Spain and we have here our own trusted travel agent. But if you are based in the States, we also happen to have a couple of long-term followers of the channel who might be able to help. We've never used their services because we always book our cruises here in Spain, but if you are interested, they are friendly, extremely knowledgeable, and asking them for advice won't cost you anything. They are Ramon and Zoe from Orbix Travel, originally from Puerto Rico and now based in Florida. They are licensed travel advisors specializing in ocean and river cruises, guided tours, and excursions. You will find their links in the first comment below the video. And if you get in touch with them, do let them know you follow the channel. And just to be completely transparent, because that's the way we like to work, we haven't been paid to share this recommendation. We are mentioning them simply because they may be truly useful to some of you. And if the pilot boat is coming in, it's probably time to bring this video to port, or rather to put an end to it. And by the way, in Spain, pilots are called prácticos. So now you've learned at least one new word in this video. On the screen now, you will see our list of videos to help cruisers make the most of their vacations in Spain or Portugal. A list we hope to grow in the coming months. We're waiting for you there.